Truth Seeker and/or its affiliates are not responsible for any strange phenomena that may occur during or after listening to this podcast, which may include the following: heightened senses of awareness, psychic abilities, UFO sightings, alien contact, time loss, out-of-body experiences, ringing in the ears, ESP, lucid dreaming, increased synchronicities, astral projection, telepathy, stronger intuition, levitation, miraculous healings, and/or remote viewing. Please be advised to listen at your own discretion.
Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? To a place to walk on troubled seas, faith to stand when I don't believe. I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away. I just wanna be with you. Won't you come?
You are now locked into the Truth Seeker podcast.
Gargoyles! Psychics! Everything's ungodly! Dark Savage!
Streaming live at truthseeker.com.
She's not a Christian!
Give it up, y'all.
Your portal to the paranormal, esoteric, and all things spiritual.
She's tampering in dark sided stuff!
And now, your host, Truth Seeker.
Yo, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? I'm your host, Truth Seeker. This is the Truth Seeker Podcast. Excited and delighted to be with you guys again today. Got an awesome show planned for you. Some quick updates before we get into the information, though. Huge shout out to everybody supporting my work on Patreon. You guys literally mean the world to me. I just released my pre-order for this next album entitled Seer, and that album would not be possible without the support of everyone at Patreon. So thank you guys, each and every one of you who are supporting over there, anywhere from $1, $5 a month, whatever you're able to do, it helps. So that album wouldn't be possible without you guys. So you guys share in the manifestation of that project. Thank you so much. You guys, everybody on Patreon will be mentioned in the credits of the CD. So the whole thank yous and all that stuff, it's just going to be your names, everybody who's supporting on Patreon. And so you guys will forever be in the credits of that album. Thank you for that. So if you want to support my work, support the podcast is free to consume, but it's not free to create and distribute. So head on over to patreon.com/truthseeker and sign up for any level of giving. You get my entire discography. You also get all the new music that I'm working on. Like I said, I'm talking about releasing a new album. Most of the people who have been supporting my work on Patreon already have the new material, so it's nothing new to them. Every time I get done recording a song, I upload it over there, and it's available for you guys to consume. So thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. There's also a album release party scheduled. The album's set to drop 4/20/2018, and we're gonna be doing a big house party over here in Mobile at a friend of mine's house, and I'll be doing a concert. It's gonna be some EDM music, techno, and some spiritual hip hop for you guys as well. So anybody who wants to travel, I got friends traveling from Orlando to come. They're driving 8 hours to come be here for this party. I'm super excited. So anybody wants to do that, all the information is at truthseeker.com. The flyer, the music, the album pre-order, the sampler, all that stuff. Thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. It means a lot. The last couple of days since I did a podcast, we've had some more people sign up to support the work on Patreon. I'm gonna give a quick shout out to Andrew Jackson, Adaya, Pamela Clements, Jonathan Lightbeing, and Brandon Burr. Thank you guys, and welcome to the fold. I look forward to communing with you guys and growing spiritually with you all. Also, when you support via Patreon, you get access to the School of the Mystics, which we'll be doing tonight, Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Central at truthseeker.com. Click School of the Mystics there. We do just a hangout session, prayer activation, and just kind of get to open up with each other one-on-one outside of the podcast, and it's just on a private setting. And so that's been really good growing with you guys there and hearing your stories and all that good stuff growing there. So if you want access to all that stuff, patreon.com for any level of giving. $1, you get access to all that stuff. So with that being said, I want to let everybody know that the phone lines are open. People always want to call in when I don't open the phone lines, but then when I do, then nobody calls in. So the phone lines are open. If anybody has a question, you want to join the conversation, whatever it is, make sure you do that. The number's streaming across the top of the platform and also in the descriptions as well. So without further ado, we got a good show for you guys. We're going to be talking about astral travel. We're going to be talking about spirituality with Nicolle Leanne. Did I say your name right? Nicolle Leanne, is that it?
Yes.
Awesome. Yes. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
Doing good. After I did the podcast with
Jim Gerard.
Yeah, Jim Gerard, he actually reached out to me, told me about you, and then I got an email from you, pretty much checking out your work. What is your affiliation with him? Did you go through some of his courses or anything? Or did he teach you any of his practices?
So he actually, I guess, stumbled upon a video I released discussing what I learned about our President Trump during my first ayahuasca experience in 2016. And that would have been when I learned that information, it was while he was still running for president. So it wasn't, even though I released it after he was president, because I didn't really want to jump into it. I was kind of withholding, but then finally I felt the message wasn't for me. It was to share to others. And anyways, that's how he stumbled upon me, and he, I guess, did his divination dice code reading, and it even mentioned me by name and even had a lot of profound messages in those readings that were actually connecting to a recent plant medicine journey that I went on to in connection with the intentions that I went into that one with. However, when you do those plant medicine journeys, in this case ayahuasca, you tend to find there's a lot of synchronicity that not only leads up to the journey itself, and then you have your profound journey, which is amazing. And then following, it's just like what you kind of see coming in. And I feel like he was one of the connect the dots as part, not only for being a part of my journey and in the intentions I was seeking kind of answers to. And he kind of brought that through his divination dice code, which was really fascinating to me. And then, and so he reached out, and we've been kind of chatting for the last, I'd say, few weeks to a month, and we've been kind of doing some dice code readings. We've talked about him maybe training me how to decode it, because that's, I guess, taken him 3 years to do. But in the meantime, I've just been really impressed with the channelings that come through. And it's not like your typical, it's kind of like an oracle in a sense. It's not where it's like a yes, no, and this is your future and this is your destiny. It's really kind of, if I were to compare it to, and it's actually part of what my recent intentions were, we're kind of exploring around like the emerald tablets. It's kind of speaks in that kind of parable of like almost poetic almost. So I would say it's kind of like almost an oracle feel to it, mm-hmm. of how the information comes through. So it still gives you room for interpretation. So of course he did his video with you and had me watch it. And then I was drawn to reaching out to you because I really felt connected to how you hold yourself in not only the metaphysical community and being open to new age concepts or metaphysical or spiritual, while still, throwing some biblical passages our way. And then also kind of not coming at either stance with judgment. Yeah. Just because I feel like when you're on one side of the playing field, there tends to be judgment that you experience from the other side of the team that, in my case, I wasn't raised religious. I kind of had an open door to explore whatever I wanted. And so I got to start at a really young age. And And so, yeah, so I don't really have the backings religious wise, but I've also experienced judgment from the things that I've gotten to, I guess, tap into, because it's something that's of the unknown, the misunderstood, and people tend to fear that which they do not know or have no experience with. So,
yeah, I mean, we find out that like every religious sect or denomination, I mean, because it even goes from religion to religion, but within the religion, and I guess if we're talking about religion, we can talk about the New Age as well. Like there's all kind of sects into that, and people say, I'm just spiritual, I'm not New Age, you know, like they don't want to be affiliated with that term. And then coming from the church realm, they use that as a bad word as well. Oh, that's just New Age, you're into New Age or whatever. But then like everybody wants to claim that they own this thing that their religion that they practice with the religion, especially when it comes to spirituality, whether it's the Holy Spirit or the Kundalini or the Chi energy, and say, well, brother, you said that's the Holy Spirit. That's actually the Kundalini. It's like we're all talking about the same things, but everybody has their own terminology, and nobody owns it. They just own the terminology. But once we can move past that, we're all talking about the same thing, and I think that's beautiful. And it just shows you like the control and the dogma, even within the spiritual realms. Because whenever we were first going live, I was talking about, I wanted to name the show something about psychic abilities, and then even you were like, wait. It's not actually psychic abilities that I talk about. I do shamanic intuition and things, and so whenever we talk about that, my mind. To me, it's all the same thing. So I want to talk to you a little bit about like what's different, because there's good in what I do in bringing everything under one umbrella, but then there's also like there is some
misconceptions.
There is some misconceptions, and some things are a little bit different. So you're getting known for your shamanic shadow healing work and
service.
So that. It's a little bit different than just talking about psychic abilities and predicting the future.
Right. Yes.
So let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay, so obviously I have a big background of what led me into this service that has been actually channeled by my higher guides. But it initially started, I guess, evolving from originally Reiki, which I didn't think I was initially going to use, which Reiki is an energy healing modality of laying of the hands and aligning your chakras. So when I actually started doing this work, I didn't actually, or when I was guided, say, by the universe to be providing these services that I've accumulated over actually, a good 2/3 of my life, I didn't really think that I was going to be using these things for others, because it has been a big part of my spiritual journey. So, of course, when I had to then make it available to others, I kind of was very nervous, because it meant being authentic to myself and putting myself out there as who I am, and my spirituality and my business being one and the same thing. I couldn't no longer hide behind the mask. So once I started adding in some of the services that I've accumulated through different things that I've done over my life, one of them was Reiki. And so I started making it available as a sideline service. And then I started channeling with the clients different information as to what the root cause of, say, some of their health concerns were, and what they needed to know to actually further their healing journey, and which took me a little while to acclimate to, because I wasn't trusting of that intuitive side at the time. I was over rationalizing it and trying to find proof. But part of that is where we distort information, because we're playing like a messenger to this other person. And so if I'm withholding something that it was not meant for me to rationalize, I'm actually preventing information that they needed to hear for themselves only, to be the interpreter. And so that's how it kind of started. And then my higher guides started kind of communicating more and more with me this way, and started evolving the service to what we then had to change the identity of, because it was no longer Reiki. And the name they gave me was the Shamanic Shadows Healing. And they kind of guided me into through a little synchronistic work. But the main reason why they did that is because they wanted, and so I guess to explain what the Shamanic Shadows Healing is where I really lead the person into an out-of-body astral state experience through a pairing of a powerful guided meditation with the energy that I've developed within my own being to kind of serve as like a bridge to help connect them to, say, the higher realms, where many of my clients get to experience spiritual phenomena like connecting to their deceased loved ones or their personal guides, angels, guardians, loved ones, and their higher self. So we work with their higher self and reuniting them so they themselves can start to open up their own extrasensory abilities and start utilizing them not only within the session, but within their reality. So that's kind of how we bridge it up and kind of connect them. And the reason why we do that, and my guides were emphatic on that, is because they didn't want me to be the messenger anymore, because they said that it's really important that the client, the person, realizes that they have the answers for themselves and they have that portal open to them. They just might not know how to access it yet. And so instead of me relaying a message that I might be filtering or skewing through my filters or perception of what I think I know or where my rationalization is, it's really about connecting them so they're the ones interpreting whatever they connect to and whatever the messages that they get through that, because it's way more impactful experientially than, say, going to a psychic or a medium and saying, oh, your loved one's coming through and they have this message for you. If you get to experience that connection, now everybody's experience is unique to them. They can see, they can maybe feel, hear. I find that if that connection takes place, which happens majority of the time, but not all times, and I'd say the times that people struggle to connect is when they come in with strong expectations of how they should connect, and they actually block the connection that way. And so that's when they kind of connect to these beings, but that's not, for the shamanic shadows healing, that's not the goal, is that connection. That's just the bonus, because we also invite in those energy of those beings to kind of proceed with the healing in tandem with the chakras. And what we then really go after is addressing the shadow the shadow parts of our psyche, of ourselves, that we've buried over time that connects us to our past. Because the one thing that I found is that society-wise, we've been entrained and conditioned to cope, but nobody was taught how to actually heal themselves. We were taught how to not feel what we're feeling, so if you have a headache or a physical symptom, you're trying to do whatever you can to numb that symptom or not feel it. So you're going to go reach out for the Tylenol. Meanwhile, your body is communicating you something's wrong, and you're ignoring that signal because you're trying to avoid pain. And so we're conditioned at all costs to avoid pain. But the root in our healing is actually facing those shadows, those sources of our pain, whether it's sourced or rooted physically or rooted emotionally or mentally or on a soul level. And so the shamanic shadows healing is really a comprehensive, thorough process of walking this person and facing different aspects of themselves so they can essentially reclaim themselves and have a new relationship to themselves. Because especially if you factor then in the law of attraction, you're manifesting your reality by the vibrations you hold within you. The way you think, you create, and the way you feel empowers those creations. And so if you have a lot of negative, low vibratory emotional states of being, even if you've swept them under the rug essentially in your being and pretend it's not there, it's still creating effects in your reality if you're unaware of it. But if you can integrate it and heal it and process it and face it, so you release the hold that has over you, you really have a more of a solid platform and foundation to move forward with, because you're not bringing all your baggage with you, essentially, is what we're trying to do in the shamanic shadows healing. Is we're trying to help you release as much of that baggage as possible so that you literally feel light after your session. So I would say, in a nutshell, that's kind of what we do there.
There's so many different, so it's hard just to say, okay, this is what we do, because it's a little bit of everything. Because you're talking about dealing with the hurts and the wounds and things like that, versus just treating the symptoms, because you can have
No.
these hurts and wounds that can actually stem from childhood, birth trauma. There's all types of stuff. Someone took something from you when you were younger, your parents disowned you, whatever it is, and it creates this hurt there, and we start acting out of that, and it messes up our relationships with people. And
But it also creates a magnification of what you're likely to attract in relationships,
exactly.
because all of our relationships, even if it's just passing acquaintance, are mirrors to us, showing us different aspects of ourselves that
Hmm.
need addressing, or showing us different, like aspects of ourselves. So if, say, you were raised in an environment that wasn't supportive of your well-being or provided unconditional love, which is the majority of most people's upbringings, let alone
Yeah.
adding factors if there was trauma
Yeah.
or abuse or neglect or abandonment, we take those and we own those as part of our identity. And when we associate that as I'm not worth loving, or I don't deserve what it is that I want, or people are out to use me, or whatever those beliefs that we associate by an experience, you then create relationships in your
Yeah.
reality, not because you deserve to be treated badly, but because you believe that that's all you're worth. And so you will have the proof of that by
Yep.
virtue of law of attraction. Like attracts like.
Hmm.
But most people are unconscious of how much of them is creating what they see. And so instead of realizing that part of them has created exactly what they see, and if they don't like it, they can change it, instead they react to it and create more
Yeah.
of a domino effect, more of the same, more of the same, and wonder why they're not happy with their lives.
Because the symptoms never go away. Like, you're gonna keep having those symptoms until you deal with
With the why you have the
the root
symptom.
of it. Exactly.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I've been through it myself. I went through which is a Christian version of like Reiki and what they call deliverance ministry, like going through just your childhood. And did you ever think this? Did your parents ever say? It was a big list and just checklist, just filling everything out. And then I've seen it was a Christian program, but then there's so many spiritual programs that were like identical. They just changed the name. And I'm saying, like, look, we're doing the same thing. I did this in the Christian church. There were some people who were doing this, and then there's people who actually do that to kind of, cut the ties. And they call it different names: spiritual soul ties, cords of attachment, things like that. But you got to deal with the root of the problem. If not, you're gonna just be dealing with the symptoms for the rest of your life. And I've been on shows. We talk about, like, I quote the Bible and stuff like that. I believe in Jesus and stuff. And I'll go on New Age shows and I'll mention Jesus or mention the Bible, and they'll just little subtle things under their breath. They'll laugh. Oh, Jesus. The Bible. And then they're laughing like they don't take it
Yeah.
seriously. But a lot of those people are still, even through this conversation, are acting out of hurt by someone in a place of authority that maybe did something to them, or their parents tried to force Christianity down their throat, and then
Oh
it's
yeah.
like, you take that Christian stuff and shove it. I don't want nothing to do with that. So they just start, anybody who's a Christian, anybody who mentions the Bible, they start operating out of that hurt, and they don't know it. And they could be 40, 50 years old, on up into their adult and professional lives, still operating out of hurt and out of
And the
trauma,
reason
messing up people on the way. I mean, we've all done it if we're honest.
Well, the reason why I think, and what's really important to emphasize, regardless of what your beliefs are, you have to really explore what beliefs you adopted that did not belong to you. Meaning, you're conditioned as a child. Your parents tell you what's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's bad. Your religion, if you're indoctrinated in a specific religion, you have a priest or a pastor or whoever the authority is that is preaching the Bible, but they're interpreting it again through their lens and their interpretation of what they say it means. And that's where people get into trouble, because they're not owning their truth and being the sole interpreter of what that means for them. And so they're essentially, again, propagating the problem, and it's basically interpreting someone else's interpretation.
Of God.
And that's where people
Yeah.
get into trouble. And that's exactly why, my guides specifically for this service, basically steered me, at first let me go that route because it was kind of still opening up that portal and that channel. But really, it was them saying what's really important is that person individually needs to assimilate what are their beliefs through their own exploration, their own interpretation, and discover what it means for them, whether their source is the Bible or, Krishna or the, Judaism, whatever their sources are. Maybe they want to explore it all and take little bits and pieces from each one and find what serves them. I would say, in my experience and in my opinion, from what I have been exposed to, I would say that's the best approach for any one person.
I agree.
Is to take bits and pieces from exploring, because they're open to trying to understand, well, what is all these different areas, rather than saying, well, I wasn't raised this way, so I'm going to naturally repel this modality or this belief because it goes against, what my church told me or whatever, and that's where people get into trouble. Is because they're adopting someone else's belief. And remember, the law of attraction is always working. It's creating by virtue of your beliefs. So it's not like, oh, I'm going to prove to you the truth. It's going to prove to you your belief is true. So if you are not really in a higher truth space, you've adopted other beliefs that aren't actually your own authentic beliefs. They're just ones that you've accepted as true. You're creating proof daily that your truth is true. But then you have to think about everybody else has the same capabilities, and we're this melting pot of, many, many beliefs, creating proof to ourselves that we're right. And then you come into conflict because you're like, no, you're wrong because I'm right, because I've gotten the proof of my stuff being more true than yours.
I've always said it was my expectation brings about my manifestation. And you see people in the world, they say, show me proof and then I'll believe it. But I say, let me believe it first and then I'll see it. I mean, that's what faith is, and just aligning yourself up with that belief. We're seeing crazy manifestations right now. With this podcast in general, I got fans and friends who hit me up and say, they're throwing these big names at me. Like, hey, what if this person could come on the show? And then the next day I get an email from their publicist. Hey, we want to see if so-and-so can come on your show. And we're like, man, we're literally creating this as we think it. But then it's when the thought it joins with the power of confession, and then we speak it. Like we can walk around having these positive thoughts all the time and just keep them to ourselves. But when our heart joins with the mouth and the confession of the spoken word, abracadabra, I create it as I speak it, and we're literally going around creating this stuff.
Yeah, especially if you have no resistance to what it is you're trying to manifest. Meaning, if it's not going to make or break your day, whether your manifestation happens or not of what you're trying to intend into the universe, then you're more likely to be in alignment of receiving the very thing that you are trying to, say, purposefully create and attract. And the more, of course, you practice using the law of attraction consciously, things happen a lot faster. And you also practice by getting out of your own way. And so things happen faster and you're less resistance to that. But for the average person, they're in their way. A lot of times what they want, they have limiting beliefs to what they want because they were taught something that they can't have what they want. For example, the belief money doesn't grow on trees, or you got to work hard for everything in life. Guaranteed.
That's a big one.
That person is struggling and working hard to meet their needs because that's their belief. They're seeing the proof of it. So the challenge is shift your belief, allow it room to kind of prove to you in small pieces rather than be like, oh, I'm going to go buy a lottery ticket and I'm going to win because now I'm going to try out this new law of attraction thing. It doesn't work like that because you have to think about your belief. Does your belief support your ability to win the law of attraction, or are you already working out the odds against you unconsciously? And so we do that. We sabotage in all areas of life. And so when you feature in the law of attraction, which is a powerful universal law for anybody who's listening, that doesn't know what it is, it's kind of like gravity is to earth. It governs our universe, whether you're aware of it or not. But when you become aware of it, you can literally change your life. And who doesn't want that power in their own hands? And that really brings in the concept. And I mean, you can probably quote the Bible verse. I'm not, again, I'll probably butcher it, but where we're made in the image of God or whatever, we are co-creators. We are powerful. And so part of what I think maybe the certain religions might do is not necessarily gift that individual that they are powerful co-creators in the image of God. They might plant more the seeds of, we were created in sin and we have to fix ourselves before we can enter, his heavenly, realms or whatever, again, that's not my arena of delving, but again, it works the same way. You are creating that reality to be truth for you. Just like if you believe in the devil and evil, it exists because enough of the collective believes in evil, believes in the devil. But I would say the higher truth to that isn't necessarily so, but there's enough of a manifested energy behind a collective belief that creates those denser entities that can actually be demonic in nature and can, and that's when you experience things like, exorcisms and, paranormal activity and hauntings and what have you. And it's a fear consciousness, but it is a consciousness that we all, I think, have experienced is fear in general. Fear is a very powerful manifesting energy. It's just dense. And so what you create from that is never good.
You mentioned a while ago, you're talking about the service that you provide, and you mentioned the word channeling, that you channel. Talk a little bit more about that, because coming from like a religious background, that's a scary word for a lot of people. They think like immediately their mind goes that, okay, you let a spirit inhabit your body and speak through you. That's what they talk about. But there's channeling energies, right? You can feel a vibration and actually give that message that's on somebody or around somebody. It's not like, it is a mystical experience, but it's not so woo as leaving your body and letting entity speak through you, correct?
So if you are familiar, there's different type of, I guess, channeling, and the kind that you're talking about is where an entity speaks through you or a consciousness speaks through you. I would rather approach it from that perspective. Consciousness that embodies certain identities, so you can connect to it as the listener, or the channel can create a certain relationship with this energy that is trying to communicate higher information through you. Mediums are usually people that channel, I feel like, a lot more connected to the deceased. Not to say that they don't have, they can certainly channel guides and angelic realms and etc. And so, but again, I would consider channeling, if we're talking loosely, we all have the ability to channel to some extent. If we open those portals, it's really just opening up your intuitive faculties where information can process to you and through you. And that can come in the forms of, clairvoyance. Your dreams can be a communicating tool for you. They can be prophetic. They can let you know what's going on in your world if you were to be in tune with receiving visually, or clairvoyance, which means you might receive visual stimuli that kind of imprints a message, or not necessarily a message, but imprints something that needs to be interpreted, kind of, I guess, like a message, either to that individual or whatever it is that's coming through, or maybe it's for you yourself. Clairaudience is where, and I'm not clairaudient, at least not yet, where you can hear information in your head almost, and it's kind of like maybe more on the voice side of things, where you can actually maybe hear something. That's my understanding of it. But again, I would talk to somebody who actually has that gift for them to describe it to you. That's not mine. There's claircognizance, which is, I would say, is my strongest, which is where information kind of, and when I say channeling, it's like connecting to a radio frequency and being in tune with higher information that flows through you, in my case, in the form of knowings. So it's like you have like
things like
downloads, exactly. So it's like where the thought isn't your natural thinking mind, where you're thinking, what am I going to eat for lunch today? You're receiving information that's kind of profound if you were to really listen to it and then share it with another person. And usually maybe it's because you're sharing with that person, but then when you're actually hearing yourself say it, a lot of times that message is also for yourself. And in my case, I find that to be a lot of the times with my clients is they're usually a big time a mirror to me. But in any case, channeling can be also in the form of being an empath, a feeler, where you feel energy and you can almost assimilate the energies in the room or what that person is going through because you're feeling their stuff in your body. And I would say that's another one of
Have you ever experienced that, like sickness or headaches or back
No, yeah.
pains?
And I'd have to take my hands off the person to see, is this mine or is this theirs?
Exactly, right. I talk about that in the Christian church, like being in churches, and it was a safe haven growing up because like the pastor would trust me to go on stage and ask anybody if they were feeling that. But if you're in a large group of people and you don't know, you've never heard a podcast like this, you don't have nobody to talk to, and you're in a large group of people, all of a sudden you got this crazy back pain. Or I had an experience where I went deaf in one of my ears. And I thought, like, in the Christian church, we think it's the devil coming against us. We start, oh my God, I can't hear. The devil's trying to take my hearing. I rebuke you in Jesus' name. And it doesn't go away. We're like, oh my God, I got to go to the doctor. I can't hear, you know? And then you find out, like, hold on, let me confess this. If I'm praying, if I'm healed and I'm delivered, I'm set free, why is this happening to me? Well, maybe it's not me. Maybe somebody else has this and I'm moved by their infirmity, like what's going on with them. So you have to find out if it's yours, if it is a demonic attack or a negative energy attack, or if somebody else in here cannot hear out of their ear and you're the one to deliver the message or put your hand on them and actually have their ear pop and open. And I was in a church that actually allowed me to kind of move that way. I pull the pastor to the side. He let me get on stage and call it out on the microphone, and people would come forth and they'd get healed. And my pain in my ear or my neck, whatever the energy I was dealing with, it would leave when it left that person. It's awesome, but it's like the safe haven. And I think podcasts like this are important because people like that stuff's driving people crazy. They're like going to Walmart and like just energies, and they're just like, oh my God, I got to keep to myself, get in here, get what I need, and get out. And then
that's probably why a lot of people have a lot of social anxiety because
definitely.
they feel different, or they're feeling so many other people's energies that they might not be able to discern what's theirs versus what's others, and can have a lot of anxiety associated with that. But I would like to share two examples that kind of popped to mind of clients. And when I first started doing the Reiki, and this is before it's evolved into the service that I told you about with the shamanic shadows healing, one of my earliest clients, initially it was another girl that was going on maternity leave that did Reiki that was like, hey, can you take my client? I'm going on maternity leave. And so I was like, sure, why not? And the only thing she told me, or that I was aware of about him, is that he had cancer, but I didn't know what kind. Again, I was still kind of new at adding that service to make available to other people. Because I thought they would be seeing me for a different service more that I thought was going to be my breadwinner. And little did I know it was going to evolve me in so many different ways. But at this time, when I was working on him, I remember I was like working on his heart chakra, and this message popped in my head that his wife had cheated on him. So when I said the filter, so that was my big, he's my big,
I hate it when it's those big things like, oh my God.
And then I'm looking for a ring on his finger, and I'm like, is he even married? And I don't see a ring, and I'm like, I must have pulled this out of my butt, I'm making this up, and that's when I was like, I'm not going to say anything because my ego didn't want to be wrong, right? So I was like, I don't even want to say anything.
That's too big. If it's something small, like, hey, do you have pain in your back? No, I'm good. Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, your wife's cheating on you? Yeah. Like, you're not trying to plant those seeds, and he didn't even have a ring, so I'm like, I'm making this stuff up. So, and that's when I ended up working on his root chakra, which is in between your pelvic region. And I was hovering just above it a few inches, and it was literally like my hand went on fire. Like I was hovering over a hot stove. And so of course I was like, what is this? So anyways, when he came out of his session, I then asked him, I'm like, well, what kind of cancer do you have? And that's when he said, I have prostate cancer. And everything clicked after that. It was like he developed prostate cancer because his wife had cheated on him, and he internalized that not just as an emotional betrayal, but a sexual betrayal of man ego pride, of what's wrong with me down there that she had to find it somewhere else, and all that anger and all that energy he internalized in that root chakra, which is also associated with your genital regions and physical body parts in that sense. And so it manifested into his prostate cancer. So if I had withheld that message, which was actually the clue to his healing, because it was the root cause as why he had not been able to heal yet, even though he started off allopathically doing chemo, doing radiation, but it came back full force because it wasn't caused physically. And again, I'm not necessarily one that stands behind that. I have my own opinions, but anyways, we're not going to go into that. But so that's when he started looking into alternative routes, changing his diet. And he also then started doing the energy healings with me once a month for about 9 months. And he was part of my evolution process of what my service was evolving into, no longer being Reiki. And anyways, he's now cancer free because he started doing the work, not only with the energy and the healing that we were doing, but consciously trying to forgive and release that anger and that
so it won't come back, closing that door. Yeah.
And so, and yeah, his cancer is undetectable. And another one, I want to give another example that was one of my, I have so many profound examples, some that people have done testimonial videos on, which, I'm always grateful for when people share their story. But of course, not everybody feels comfortable on camera. So I have all the stories or what people get to connect to. And so it's been like a crazy, wild experience for me to be a part of that with them. But there was this one lady that kind of taught me something else, or showed me proof of. And in this case, it was the proof that we are not our physical bodies, nor are we the symptoms of those physical bodies. We are the soul that inhabits it. And so the beingness, the essence of the consciousness. And how this was shown to me was because originally she had a bunch of family members that had all come to see me. I saw like most of their family because they all experienced a lot of loss of loved ones. I think they collectively lost like 12 members or something like that, where they were all grieving in different ways, and reacting to the remaining members in different ways because they were internalizing it differently. So anyways, there were quite a few that had already come to see me before she'd come to see me. And so she got to hear what they got to connect to, or who they, saw or talked to, or whatever, of the loved ones. And so she came in with those expectations. The other problem is she was hard of hearing. She had a hearing aid. And so when we were laying down and I'm trying to guide her, she was like, wait, what? I can't hear you, and she was having a lot of trouble hearing me, to the point I was just like, what, this is going to get in the way of your session. I think we're just going to do just an energy balancing for you today. And so she was really, you could tell, just really disappointed. Like she felt like she was not going to get the same experience that her family did. And, and I kind of felt bad while I was going through. I'm like, oh man, like, she can't hear me, because she took the hearing aid out and just kind of let herself relax. And, or she might've turned it down, or just, I think she might've just turned it down. I don't think she took it out, and just kind of let herself go. And when I knew she was in a trance-like state where she let go of that control and trying to force this experience, I then started talking to her and started leading her into it. And she heard every word and crying and sobbing at different parts that she was connecting to. And it was because, she wasn't the limited hearing. She was the soul that was in another state, that was processing the work that she was doing, that was still connected to physical self, of course. But it was just really a profound experience, I think, not only for her and for me, is to say, you weren't limited by your physical condition or your limitation or your pain. Although I would say pain can get in the way of somebody connecting. If you're in severe pain, it's really hard to take your focus off of that pain to even disconnect from body, because you're kind of rooted in the suffering and your own pain physically. And so I'd say that sometimes people would struggle with, if they're coming in with pain and didn't take their their pain medication, and they're feeling everything more intensely so, and then you're trying to get them to relax so they can, go into this astral state, kind of like when you're dreaming, but anyways, I wanted to share those two
Yeah.
examples.
No, it's awesome. It's awesome because like the same exact stories that I have and you have very similar ones. Like I had my experience in the Christian church, right? It was a charismatic church. It wasn't like some backwood Baptist. It was charismatic, which is open to the spiritual giftings that are mentioned in the Bible. It talks about healing and laying on of hands and hearing the voice of the Spirit and being led by intuition. All of that stuff is in the Bible.
So that's what I consider channeling.
Exactly. I know, right? So we're saying the same thing, just different, because the word channeling is not in the Bible. But essentially, you can channel the Holy Spirit. You can pick up on unclean spirits that are leached on to people. It's being able to feel the energy and stuff like that. And it's awesome how the stories are so similar, and you've never... You don't have the background of being in the Christian church, and it's the exact same. It's the exact same thing. It's awesome. But then when people, they'll get mad because they feel like they own their religion or they own their experience, and it's this way, and this is the only way.
Well, it's because our ego is something that I think is in everybody's way, and we all, I think, on our spiritual journey struggle with, what's your higher truth versus what's your lower truth, and your ego tends to, it's gotten in my way plenty of times. That's one that I feel like I've had a lot of depth to in certain ways, but there's a lot that still needs to be transcended even on my part, even with all the work I've done on myself and my journey. I still got room to go.
Definitely.
And not like it's not like climbing to the top of the mountain.
I've arrived. That's
I would say it's an unfolding, like an onion. You're peeling back layers of falsehoods or things that you accepted previously as what you thought was true, and then you realize there's a higher truth to even that. And so what I would compare that to is, as humans, we're like toddlers on the playground. You know what I mean? We are evolving, and I think our consciousness is beginning to collectively evolve so that we can be more mature on a soul level, where our first instinct isn't to fight with somebody or to persecute them because they think something differently to you. I think we're beginning to become more open, and I think it's taking a lot of those leadership roles that people have taken upon themselves because of their journey to really speak out about opening up that portal and being like, look, you might believe this, or you come from this country, or you might wear this kind of rag on your head and, have Muslim beliefs or whatever, but hey, I accept you, I can still love you. I can still see God essence in you, or consciousness or source essence in you. I think it's really when we start to like separate and create judgment and labels to differentiate why we're different is where we really start to get problematic with one another, instead of being like,
what makes us the same?
Yeah. Like, you got some good qualities. I would like to pick your brain and learn a little bit about why you believe what you believe, I don't need to adopt it, nor do I need to project mine onto you and say you're wrong and here's mine, but I think if we can kind of just have that sort of coexistence of acceptance, there would be no need for war.
That's where
that's where we're headed.
Yeah, that's where spiritual awakening starts for like a lot of people who come out of a dogma and come out of religion or the New Age or a cult or whatever the case is. And so they end up saying that they have this and this is my own and I'm different and I'm unique, and then
they put it in a box.
Yeah, and so nobody can mess with it. And then here they're listening to this interview and you know what I'm saying, maybe they resonate with me. I'm a Christian. I have this stuff. And then you have the same exact story, but hold on, it just like totally messes up everything, because we're taught to see what makes us different and why our religion is right. Like, that's what they tell you, to like be able to break down everybody's belief system and understanding to prove why yours is right. Well, in doing that, I mean, you could put two and two together and see what makes us the same. If you can see what makes us different, you can see what makes us the same, and all of this stuff starts lining up. And the experiences, and love is universal, and healing, and being around good people, and all of this stuff, and it kind of breaks down the walls that you've actually built up. And so listening to stuff like this, if you have something to protect, it becomes a threat to like their belief. Oh, that's not real because it threatens their belief, and like, but you can only imagine like if somebody has based their whole life upon this, not just their life but their eternal salvation, like where they're gonna go forever, and they have trusted this belief system, and so to be told that that's wrong, it can only be, it's only like the fight or flight that kind of kicks in.
Nobody likes change. Nobody likes change, and nobody likes to be told that they're wrong. Nobody likes criticism. And I get what you're saying with the self-preservation of here's the problem is they identify it as who they are.
Yeah.
And that's why it's really hard, because it means like, oh, I'm not who I think I am then, if this belief needs to shift, because it's not really the ultimate truth. And so I think people have a crisis of consciousness when they do say end up breaking with their religion or their church, because they feel that what they've come to know it challenges what they've been told to know. And so that's where I feel like they can push it all away and resist it completely, or say, I don't believe in anything, or I'm going to go Buddhist, or I'm going to, or maybe they'll go exploring. And I can definitely say that because, when you're told your whole life what you're supposed to be believing and how you should act, and you're good if you do this and you're bad if you do this, we fracture ourselves. We can't be whole and know we're going to be accepted for who we are without disowning parts of ourselves that we say isn't good enough. I'm not allowed to show anger because that's not the best side of me. I'm not allowed to be sad because that means I'm a crazy girl. Or depending if you're male or female, right? So guys are, definitely been raised harshly in that demeanor. Like a lot of guys, especially my guy clients, will repeat a lot of that programming as, if you get upset or hurt and really, because you have a reason to, you might have had that strict parenting where like, I'll give you something to cry about if you cry, you know what I mean? And so it makes guys even dissociate from their own feelings, their own intuitive compass of where they're at. And that's what our emotions are. They're a clue as to where you're at this given point of time. Something's making you feel this way. But if you're not allowed to explore that unless it's exerted in a socially acceptable manner of anger or testosterone, think about why that really, you can't just be like, yo, man, I'm really sad. My grandmother died and I just want like a shoulder to cry on. You know what I mean? Or like, you got to pull up your bootstraps and be like, toughen up. I'm going to go drink some, alcohol real quick and get over it, And so a lot of guys, especially the way they were conditioned in society, have swept a lot of their stuff under the rug. So they do have a lot of things to work with. However, women, they have, I'd say, had more of an acceptance as far as being able to express themselves emotionally. However, they still have it as a tool of of showing weakness, in that sense of like, oh, you're crazy, you're you're overreacting, or you're over,
sensitive.
You're overly sensitive. You don't have a reason to feel the way you do. And so they get discredited how they feel, and it really disempowers them in that way too. And you can kind of see why that energy is so in our society is just so unbalanced. Because you don't get to really be where you're at. And so you're trying to talk yourself out of where you're at, or not feel what you're feeling. And again, it internalizes energetically. It's dense. Those negative emotions are so heavy and dense, and it manifests not only in physical illness and conditions, if that's what you have not resolved, but again, like I said, in your reality, you are manifesting experiences that are giving you more of that same hurt and layers of pain or trauma. If you were, for example, raised in an abusive household where maybe one of them was an alcoholic or whatever, and dad was beating up on mom, whatever, you might know that's wrong. And I don't want that for myself. But even your resistance energetically, like I don't want that, is still magnifying it to you and attracting it to you, where you then enter into these relationships that treat you the way you don't deserve, but then you start to believe it is the way you deserve because that's all you know.
Yep.
And so those
that's
individuals
all that keeps coming. Yeah.
it always keeps coming, because why you never dealt with that initial trauma, that wound of when that was first initiated with you as normal. And that would have been, say, in your upbringing, you saw it being normal with mom and dad, and it felt bad, and you hated seeing it, and you might have even gotten the brunt of it, and it distorts your reality of what you think is acceptable. And even though you know better, and you have those friends that you think are in these relationships where you say they should know better, they should leave this person, and they don't leave this person. And it's because they don't think they deserve better, because that's all they've known. And again, it's not the truth.
Yeah.
But it's what we've accepted in our own selves as truth. And it's because a lot of times we don't feel we deserve better because maybe we haven't had proof of deserving better. Yep. We've had proof of where we've been. Mm-hmm. And so it really takes people coming into their own awareness and their own consciousness, I feel, to start to address those things. And some people might have happened, naturally, because you've been seeking, because you've been in your pain, you've been in your stuff. And that's how I think a lot of also mine started. I was in my mess. I was in my darkest phase. I was my own worst enemy. You know what I mean? And when I was looking in the mirror, I was crying myself to sleep every night because I was trying to find everything that was wrong with me, because I felt different, because I didn't belong. I come from another country. I come from South Africa, moved to the United States, Texas first. I was different. I communicated different. I had a different accent. I spoke faster than everybody else, So I felt like I didn't belong. And then add in my beliefs, and the things that I've been exposed to at a young age. Like I said, connecting to spirit world started for me at age 13. I started studying astrology when I was 12, to understand initially myself, because I wanted to know, why am I different, so I've always been that seeker. But it also took a lot of self-punishment along that way, until finally I reached this breaking point where I'd hurt myself so badly, I damaged myself so badly emotionally, that it became like scar tissue, where it kind of liberated me. I didn't feel anymore. It was like, I don't even feel my own torture now. So it was like kind of like the setting free. I was numb, and I kind of like owned this like new confidence that I could just be myself, because I didn't care anymore, because I'd already done the worst to myself that anybody else could have ever done. And I feel like that then led me on kind of like a liberating journey and then things coming into my field of experience, because I shifted my energy. I no longer was holding on to that darkness of feel bad. I was now kind of not feeling anything, but kind of having hope. And then I started then being, introduced to the law of attraction when I was 19. And then that completely blew my reality wide open as what was possible and what I could try and what I could manifest. And of course, at that stage was still playing with the ego, because a lot of my bruising was ego related. And so I'm still trying to prove my worth to myself in that ego. So I was manifesting from that place, which came easily to me. But then I was still having this private spiritual journey this whole time, not that I thought I was going to use it doing the work that I do now for others. That's not what I foresaw for myself. But it's really interesting that I feel like the universe was divinely guiding me in this direction the whole time, but I was unaware of it, because I was focusing on ego pursuits of what can I have if I attract this, or maybe I'll feel better if I have this. Until I reached the point where none of those things made me happy, and then I had to like sit with myself. I'm like, okay, well, what's going to make me happy? Like, and that's kind of when I surrendered to the universe. I'm like, I need a sign, like, I've attracted money in large sums easily. I've, put my husband on the vision board, and he's now my husband, and he's exactly, the spitting image of the guy on the poster board with all the characteristics, so I've created all these different things and learned to master the law of attraction for myself. But a lot of that, I feel like, for anybody who's trying to do it for themselves, it's about self-mastery. It's more about getting rid of the things that are preventing you from co-creating in the space of your desires. rather than in the space of your fears, because you can also quickly attract lack. You can quickly attract what you don't want very easily. And I've seen those examples too. But yeah, I think that, I don't know, I think the journey has just been amazing, and I'm still seeing what's unfolding. And like I said, the synchronicities that follow when you're in tune, it shows up, and I think that you just have to be open to the universe or God or whatever your thinking is proving it to you that it's real, is going to show up for you, but you got to start that belief small. You have to even prove that the law of attraction works to you, it works for you. So start small. Don't go for those big ticket items that I'm going to manifest a celebrity wanting to come on my show when I just started my show. You know what I mean? Probably not going to believe that's going to happen right off the bat. You had
no, trust me. I've actually emailed some of these people when I first started, like years ago. You know what I'm saying? And now they're coming to me. So yeah, you know what I'm saying? So
because you shifted your ability to manifest and believing in your ability to grow.
There's practical steps in it. It's not just magic. Oh my God, I thought about it. It happened. Like everything's
Unless
practical.
you believe in magic.
Yeah. I mean,
unless you believe in magic will prove itself to you.
No, it is, but it's practical magic. You know what I'm saying? Like there is steps. There's like, okay, let me make the phone call. Let me just trust that this phone call is the magic, and let me when I get this person on the line, then they'll say yes. Trust that I'm gonna get it. It's where I see myself in the future. This is where I see myself doing. I'm speaking blessings over it.
That's because we're also still putting barriers on what that magic is supposed to be for us.
And so everything is magic, like all of it. The thoughts, the confession, all of it.
If you believe in magic, magic shows up for you. If you believe in miracles, miracles show up for you. But if you're the type that doesn't believe in it, it doesn't show up for you 100%. Because you don't believe it.
Yep.
And so miracle, magic, you can synchronicity, all these terminologies, are either going to create a resonance with you where you're like, yeah, I can get behind that. Maybe if you're religious, a miracle might seem more resonant to you in a language form. If you're more spiritual, maybe magic, unless of course, you have certain, if you associate it with being a witch or, demon worshiping or whatever, then maybe you might have a resistance to what you think that means.
Oh, yeah.
If you're in the law of attraction, New Age community, it might just be manifesting, and you might do different rituals or meditative practices to get you into that space so that you're in flow to have things happen for you quicker. And that can be magical, but really I feel like anything is possible. In my experience, which again, I can't tell people what's truth and what's not truth for them. And again, I can't tell you what to believe and what not to believe. That's your journey. You're the one that lives with that daily. You're the one that has to challenge that for yourself, because if you're not experiencing magic or these profound, wonderful experiences, maybe it's because you're not seeking it, or maybe you've already written it off because you've only been able to experience doom and gloom in your reality so far, or, you're a realist. The realists are the ones that I think have a lot of trouble with manifesting, because they are the ones that typically have that belief of, I have to see it before I believe it, right?
Yeah.
So
if I believe it, then I will see it,
So did you watch the spirit orb footage that I sent you?
Yeah, no, that was so cool. Yeah.
So,
I've seen similar stuff too with big ones. So yeah, so to have a frame of reference of seeing somebody else and then seeing your footage, yeah, that was awesome.
But can you imagine if I went up to that realist and be like, well, I'm showing you something. What do you believe now?
Yeah.
And they're like, they're going to try to, they're still going to try to rationalize it. I'm like, do you ever see dust particles that move like this?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And light up.
And appear on the floor and flicker like a strobe light, change colors like a rainbow, and that's what, I find interesting, because it started showing up because I was opening that doorway. I was opening that portal. I was working with energy, and how it started with those spirit orb footages was when people started doing testimonial videos, and they started seeing them flying around them in their testimonial videos. And that's when the question became well, what's happening during their session? And so then I started taking like a clip, maybe a little bit in the beginning of the session, middle and end, and just for like a minute and see what pops up.
It would be insane to like really film like what's going on. You know what I'm saying, in those realms, to actually see the angels doing the work, or the energy moving and changing and leaving the body and things like that. It's insane when you do get a glimpse of something. But even the orbs, like that's just the beginning of it, right? I mean, there's so much going on, inner healing and inner work, and we talk about like the ayahuasca ceremony and journey. I know Amber Lyon, her story is amazing. She talked about going to Peru and doing her journey, and she said she's seen what looked like to be little elves all over her body doing work and repairing her DNA, fixing the DNA, like little elves on her body. Like, what if we actually was able to see that? Wouldn't it? I guess on the psychedelic you can, though, like on.
Well, on that, because what it's doing is it's like removing your filters. We have filters that like creating this holographic view, perception of what we see in our reality that is, you know, and our filters are made up of our personality and our beliefs and our experiences that says what is real, what's not real, what's good, what's bad. You know, you kind of create like this perception, and that's how you see through your lens, and that's the reality you experience. And someone else's reality can be completely different. But when you're doing in this case ayahuasca, I feel like how I would describe it, it's like it's opening you up to those higher truths, but it's doing so by stripping away the filters of what you know you think you know. You know, and like they say, you don't know what you don't know. And it's been really, and I've had quite many of these experiences, but I would say, you know, like my first one was obviously, I feel like my most profound, because you're going into it blind, you're going into it with a little bit of anxiety and fear, because in my world, you know, I wasn't very experimentative with drugs or psychedelics, you know, mostly like marijuana, or I tried shrooms, you know, but I never really messed with drugs. I was conditioned to stay away from it. However, you know, they say like, even if you're raised by the same household, your siblings might take a different approach, because when you're told not to do something, you might say, well, I'm going to rebel. I'm going to try it because now I want to know why you're stopping me from it. So in this case, me and my sister had a different approach. She was more open to experimenting, and I became more closed off, because I was like, oh, I got to be this do-gooder, you know, and walk the straight line. And, you know, and I was the eldest, so I was, in my opinion, her role model, you know. But in this case, you know, I remember she planted the seed that she really wanted to try this medicine, and kind of described it to me. Well, anyways, it kind of crossed my path, and to the point where I remember thinking like, oh, my sister's been wanting to do it, I'm going to share this information with her. And then I decided, after doing a little bit of research, I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to do it too, you know. And part of me was like, I'm going to protect my little sister, you know, and care for her, you know. But it was such a profound experience for me. It had a lot to do with at the time, this was in 2016, my intentions around my mother. She had a very toxic influence on me energetically, and I had a really hard time with that. And so I actually did I actually did a video describing all this experience and all the synchronicities that not only led up to that, but then followed that. So if anybody wants to watch that, it goes more into detail. But like the things I got to experience, it was really profound. I got to learn that, and then some with my mom. It connected even to Mother Earth and our relationship to Gaia and Mother Earth. I remember healing codes being downloaded into my hands, you know, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. But then there were parts that weren't that fun, when you're throwing up, you know, and you're releasing what's not serving you. In which my case, the first one, it chose for me to release like disease and illness. And that's mostly because my intention was around my mother, who has Lyme's disease. And energetically, and the bigger clue was I had poor boundaries with my mom. She was energetically leaching those toxic energies into me because I had poor boundaries. And so every time I was around her, I felt depleted. I felt like the life was sucked out of me. And come to find out, it was because I had poor boundaries of what's her energy versus what was mine. But in that same experience, Trump even showed up in it, which, like I said, I did a video about. And I think the reason even that information came to me, and it kind of popped up in like two other people's experience in that group. different information about Trump. And it was really profound because, one, I'm not political, I didn't have an opinion. I wasn't even following the president, elections, because I'm not even American. I can't vote. My opinion doesn't matter, So it's like, try like fighting a battle, about who you're supporting when you can't even officially support this person anyways, or who you're for and
Well,
against.
that's why you get the vision, because you don't have a stake in the matter. You don't have a preconceived
I don't have
notion. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just like, whatever. This is on the drama in the world right now. Like, this is not my world. I'm gonna focus on my world.
That's
let me fix up my shit.
It's it's like harder for me to receive for people that I know. Like if I know, if I know what you're going through, and people are like, hey, would you pull a card for me? Can you see if you can get a word for me? It's like, I can, but it's harder because I already know. So I have to fight like what I already know. I can use wisdom and I can pray and I can speak a blessing, but to really tap in and pull something, it's easier for something if I have no attachments. Yeah,
exactly. They say you
exactly.
can't heal your inner circle. I've tried.
Yeah.
and there's like kind of an expectation, like even someone like my sister, be like, oh, can you put me back together? But then she goes, lives this like, party lifestyle, having fun and doing her crazy stuff. And then
the funny thing is though, Jesus went through the same thing. Like the people who knew him, they couldn't receive from him. Like they're like, man, this is a carpenter. We know this dude. We went to school with this guy. And you're saying he's the son of God. He's healing everybody. Get out of here with that. And he couldn't do miracles. He couldn't heal nobody. But when he would go out of town,
had a bias against you receiving from them too, and you also have that relationship with them, and it's frustrating. And for me in particular, because a lot of the mommy stuff on my end was like, Mom, I just need to get you in here and fix you up so we can have a good relationship, And of course, she was like resistant to it because you're my daughter, and so we had. So she's never done a session with the shamanic healing, even though a lot of the work that I've done and involved in has been somewhat inspired by what I want to do to help her. But again, like they say,
right? That's awesome.
You can't heal your inner circle, and it's frustrating because you want to.
That's awesome that you're actually motivated from that, and then so therefore you're healing other people's relationships. And I think in the midst of that, the universe or God's going to send it back to you in one form or the other. Like if you're like almost like when you're healing someone else's mother, you're extending the work to your mother as well. I've always felt that. Yeah.
And also it's really important for people to understand, like I might be in the role of like what you've deemed, like healer. I play that role, but at the same time, it's like a relationship with the client and this higher space. It's kind of like we're working together. I'm kind of serving more so as a bridge to connect you so you can, and a guide. So I'm more serving as a guide while kind of holding space with allowing energy to flow through me. While you essentially are the one doing the work on yourself. You're just being guided to address those points, but how you internalize it, how you work around it or with it, and what you take with you or what you leave without, is going to be your journey. And that's why everybody's experience, therefore, is unique to them, it's because everybody comes in with their own stuff, and, everybody kind of experiences it in their own way, therefore, and some people have done more work on themselves than others, so some people's experiences are more intense. Yeah. The other thing, so the shamanic shadows healing is, I would say, the foundation of where I usually start clients. But then there's still like the shamanic journey, which was what anything is possible after that, when it comes to like potentials, I'm still seeing what's possible through virtue of what they connect to, whether it's multi-dimensional experiences of traveling to other dimensions, connecting with other beings, channeling their future self, doing ancestral healing, and working on the energies of what you've inherited from your own ancestors, because at the end of the day, we're also connected and have once been our own ancestors. So essentially, when you're sending healing to your own ancestry, it trickles downhill, and that's how it embodies in you, and that shifts that it takes place in you. You can do things like past life healings. I mean, really, like anything's possible. One of the testimonials that's on my website, he actually wrote out the testimonial detail by detail. And this is where he was able to connect to an ascended master, Lao Tzu, who instructed us to refer to him as master. And basically he was able to channel, and a lot of my clients too, actually, I should mention, have channeled information about myself, or channeled when I was pregnant, my child. I had like about 4 clients who had my baby come through and had her giving messages through them to me. And they knew the difference, so it was really profound in that sense too. But yeah, this particular client, he got to channel Lao Tzu and went on this journey and got to download this profound enlightened wisdom that he also channeled. He was one of his we were both actually apparently students in this lifetime of Lao Tzu. But he was like remembering it and seeing it and describing the visual, and then connecting to this master, ascended master, and we were asking questions. Even I was asking questions, and he was downloading these answers, or channeling the answers. And when I say channeling, he was speaking through where my clients speak through their physical self, describing what it is they're experiencing as they're experiencing it. So that's what I mean by channeling. Mm-hmm. You are connecting, but you're describing it through your physical self, what you're experiencing. So I know where you're at any given time, or where you might be stuck, or where else we need to kind of suggest to go with it,
Awesome.
So it's fun.
Yeah, definitely. We got a lot of people in the chat room just very blown away by your stories. And so go ahead and give your website too, if anybody wants to contact you for a personal session, or check out some of the videos that we just mentioned about the orbs and stuff like that.
Ayahuasca experiences, testimonial videos. You can go to my website. It's www.holistic, spelled with a W, so WHOLISTIC, and then a dash, vitality.com. The other thing I failed to mention too is in bridging the gap, of multiple modalities, and we've mostly spent time discussing kind of the spiritual, mystical, shamanic, and we've barely scratched the surface on all of it. But the other things I'm really stand behind is finding a bridge between two worlds. And a lot of people, especially the rational mindsets, are those that stand behind science. And so I've tried to incorporate even services that have more of like a technology science backing. And so things like quantum biofeedback is what I offer. I have a photon sound beam machine, which is based on Tesla's technology, a PEMF mat, which is pulsed electromagnetic frequency mat. I just invested in a crystal light machine, which is kind of more still working with chakras, but it is still, a piece of, mechanical technology, so there is definitely a relationship if you can see the commonalities between the two. However, I would say that I feel science is still behind the spiritual of what is, and it's science trying to prove what already has been and is, and it's just behind in being able to do that. But if you have subscribed to science being the only answer, well, then you might be kind of behind a little bit too as to what actual higher truths might be, because you're trying to have something prove it to you, rather than having the intuitive connection to even want to prove that might be.
I like it when they line up, though. I like it when the science and spirituality
just like you like when religion and spirituality and all these different areas that people seem to find.
It kind of proves it. You have somebody else speaking what you believe, and I think that it adds more credit to what you believe. If you got all these other people and all these other religions and science are backing up what you believe, I'm just over here like, told you, you know what I'm saying? Like everybody's talking about the same thing,
Yeah.
I love it. So we do have a caller here. I'm gonna jump to this call. We got someone calling from Northwest Ohio. Caller, who we speaking with? Northwest Ohio.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Derek. Hello, Nicolle. I have a question about astral travel.
Okay.
I have tried many times. When I was a child, I was exposed to this probably from the time I was 10.
Okay.
And what happens is, and you may have answered it with your explanation of fear consciousness.
Yes.
Every time I'm able to just get out, but as soon as I look down at myself.
You come
I
crashing
am
back down.
immediately jumping. I'm passing back down, but I've had experience, definitely with the dark side, a lot of experience with that. Even to this day, if I'm upset, my husband's yelling at me because lights are going off and on, TV's going off and on from all around the house. So,
so fear is potentially involved here. What were you raised with your beliefs is my question. Like, what beliefs were you raised with?
For a while, when I was a very young child, for a few months, I did go to a Baptist church, but generally, spiritualist.
Okay, and your parents were open to
I
that
also
as well?
Yes. And I do think some of it may have to do with when I want to say I was probably 12 or 13, there was a family member that was taking courses on parapsychology, and the instructor died. It wasn't during class, but it was during the session. Like not in class, but when they were taking classes.
So
and people were speculating that it was due to losing contact with their cord. So I know that's probably
the fear part of it.
Some of my fear too. Yes.
Okay. Because you adopted it from someone else, even though that wasn't initially your first experience, and so fear that it could happen to you.
Correct.
But part of you is still a seeker, and you're curious and you've had some profound experiences with it. So it seems like you're like dabbling on two sides of the field there, correct? You're kind of like
correct.
Balancing on the
I don't dabble with the dark side. I said, grew up with a lot of that. Yes, okay.
But you have fear of the dark side, so there's a resistance there. So you may have had some questionable experiences that might propagate some more of that fear because it's the unknown. And so again, you might have had, from what it sounds like, you have two energies. One's that's curious and wants to know more and wants to go further, but part of you is also afraid of what could happen if you did go further. Yes?
Yes. But there's like a part of me that's compelled that I know I'm supposed to be doing this, that there's something that I need to see.
Okay,
and that's what's driving me.
Well, I also meant to mention is that I have come to find, and you said you're located where?
Northwest Ohio.
Ohio. I have done quite a few distant, remote, facilitated sessions with the shamanic journey, which has made it even more exciting for me, because at first I wasn't sure if it was something that could be facilitated from afar, because I felt so excited. I'm like, that I've come into this and I'm seeing it transform and change people's lives before my eyes, before their eyes in a lot of ways, or at least get them on that path of transformation. And so it started off actually doing it with a friend, and I'm like, well, let's try it. Let's see it. And she was able to connect and get the same quality of experience from afar as in person. And so I've done and facilitated quite a few of these from afar, as long as there's mutual availability. So if that's something that interests you, we could definitely talk some more, or you can reach out to me on my website. I
have already.
Oh, okay.
I've already saved your website in my favorites.
Oh, yay. So yeah, and keep in mind the session lasts 3 to 4 hours. It's very, very comprehensive. I address a lot of things. I'm not somebody that's good with time management, in the sense of like, okay, you only got this hour and you're cut off after that hour because this is what you're paying me for. I try to really create it with, like I said, in tandem with my guides, to make it as comprehensive, to get as much addressed in one session. And now, again, that's not to say that everything you need is gonna be in that one session, because depending on your desires or goals or what might need further work, the next step might be that you want to try a shamanic journey. And that's not to say that I'm the only person on that path for you. You might explore, say, some of the things we've talked about, like plant medicine, or other divination systems, or other healing techniques with other other healers. This is your journey. And I would say what's really important for anybody on their journey is to listen to synchronicity. And synchronicity is basically what appears as coincidence, but isn't coincidence. It's like those little magical moments, as we put it, that aligns you with either a person or a piece of information or a song that is in alignment, that resonates with you for the seeking that you are currently on, where you feel the sense of knowingness that that's what you need to do next. And if that's kind of what you feel like by listening to this podcast, that might be a clue in connecting. And that's how I find most of my clients get drawn to me. It's kind of synchronistically, they find me, and it was meant to be. And part of it is also meant to be for me as well, because they're part of my growth as well. So I always see it as a symbiotic relationship. I hope I answered your question. Let me know if you need another perspective.
Yes, well, thank you very much. I think you did, and I'm going through your website, and I love it. So, thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Well, hopefully we'll be working together soon then.
What was your name again?
Okay. Oh, this is Brenda.
Okay, Brenda.
Nice to meet you, Brenda.
Is this Brenda Bradshaw?
Brenda James.
Oh,
No,
Brenda
Brenda
James.
James.
Oh, hey, how are you? Okay.
Oh, just fine.
Awesome. Thanks for reaching
I do a
out.
lot of commenting on your posts.
Oh, I know.
Eric.
It was
Okay.
good. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, good to hear your voice.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, and you have a good day.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thank you for calling.
Bye.
Awesome.
Bye.
Yeah, cool. It's always good to hear from some of the people who's on social media, and she's been supporting on Patreon as well. So it's always cool to connect with people and that good stuff. So yeah, it's awesome too, because you're talking about, because that's a question I was going to ask you, because you're talking about you have all this equipment. So I'm assuming if you have all this equipment, then you must be doing a lot of in-house sessions where you're actually able to be physically there with the person. But
I can also be distant too,
Yeah.
which is really cool, because especially, like I said, I'm so excited that I'm seeing that it's possible for people to have the same experience, as long as we have a
Yeah.
good connection, that they can hear me.
Yep.
And that we have mutual availability.
Well,
on
you got
time
Zoom
zone.
now. You got Zoom video chat. Zoom works amazing with this stuff. Zoom and Skype. But I remember the first time that someone was asking me to step out into it, and I was like, I know I can do personal sessions with people, and I can put my hands on the person and release energy and remove stuff, and it's awesome. It's like, well, you can do
So
it.
if you want like a sciencey perspective, I guess, again, I'm not a scientist, but when you think about the concept that everything is energy, even down to the minuscule atom, we're 99.99% empty space is what the science deems it. That's 99.99% consciousness of energy that is connected by those outer shell electrons that are communicating information by its neighboring, atoms that makes up, majority wise, word empty space.
Yeah.
So when you think about it, we're transferring by thoughts through synchronicity, not only in this three-dimensional reality, but multidimensionally, sending signals by thought, because thought is energy, our emotions are energy. And that's why if you were to do healings, you can connect to somebody energetically, and quantum physics has proved this.
Yep.
And so again, this has always been, say, a higher truth, but it's taken science a long time to catch up to even be able to prove it. So it really makes me question how much of the unknown is still yet to be defined or answered, or how much of our science that has been accepted, might actually be false.
Yep. There's no such thing as space and time. So there's nothing that actually separates you. So essentially
Except
you are
the
there.
illusion of space and time. And
You're already with the person. Yeah.
Yeah. So my clients have that validation when they're in that out of body state, and then they come back into body and they're like so surprised how long the session lasted, because they have a different sense of time where they go, because everything happens instantaneously. You're thinking it already is, you know what I mean? There's no like, let me drive to my car, let me go to the gym, let me go do something, which takes,
You have to
in our
measure the
perspective,
time. Yeah.
yes. And so that's our limited perspective in this reality. But
That's what's scary for a lot of people on psychedelics, because you're in a state where there's no time. And you're like, oh, am I in purgatory? Have I died? There's no time. Am I going to be here forever? Like, people feel like that.
So for those that are afraid of trying things that because again, we all like to have control, and unfortunately our control prevents experience. In an openness sense, I find that the service gives people kind of like an ability to try and see what's out there or what's possible for them without taking anything inside, taking some sort of hallucinogenic or psychedelic or whatever. Naturally. Exactly. What's even cool about that to then know is that we're all capable of it. Right?
Yep.
And it's just a matter of us kind of creating this roadmap of then how to learn to maybe access being able to do that consciously and on purpose, which is usually reserved for, those that have dedicated their lives to being a master yogi or whatever that can master meditation. And so I find this option to be a really quick way to branch you and bridge you to have that potential experience without necessarily having to have lived your whole life trying to do meditation to have that experience. However, like I said, there is, certain requirements. You kind of have to be open-minded. You can't come in with this, rigidity to you where I want to have this cool experience, but I still don't believe it's true. And,
or if it doesn't happen in 10 minutes, I'm out.
Of how it should be. Yeah. So if I find that gets in people's way, and even though the way I lead people into it is trying to navigate, especially getting past the mind first, let's quiet that down. Let's throw away your thoughts. Let's get that into a no space zone where you're in a no thinking zone. So you are and can be receptive. But if you allow your control nature to try to still infiltrate and sabotage, it is possible that can sabotage the session. And so I think that any guidance for anybody that wants to explore or follow up with me, or maybe there's other practitioners that might have a similar service, I would say being open-minded and being ready, make sure that you are ready for that experience and that you can let go of some of that control to allow whatever your experience is to prove to you what you need to know. It's not for me to tell you what to know or what not to know. And, that's my own journey. I'm the one that has to live with my own evolution. But you're the one taking home with you what you take home with you. Yep. And you live by what you live by and create your reality by that. So, being open-minded, I think, is a prerequisite. Yep. Otherwise, it's like just showing up through the door is an action, which is good, but if you're kind of closed off and say, you're not going to get very far.
Yep. That's it, man. Nicolle, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for hanging out with me. One last time, if you want to plug your website where people can check out your work at, go ahead and do that. Okay,
so it's www.holistic, spelled WHOLISTIC -vitality, VITALITY.com. You can check it out. Check out my videos of testimonial videos, other people's experiences, because everybody's their own testimonial. I can tell you what you can potentially experience, but again, it's not, I don't think it's as authentic as kind of hearing it firsthand from them. There's spirit orb footage showing proof that there is some beings that show up during people's sessions, that we might not be able to perceive with our naked eye, but does not mean that does not exist. Also, on a side note, Derek, I think I mentioned in the email, which I think would be cool if it's something you're interested in, maybe we do a follow-up where you actually explore a session and then we talk about what you got to connect to.
Heck yeah, we'll do that. Definitely. I love it, man. I love it. I need it. And I'm like you. I enjoy going in those states, whether I'm alone or with someone else, or I'm doing work on somebody, because I'm getting healed at the same time. It's this beautiful connection that goes both ways. I love it. So we definitely can do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Any last questions before we go? Or?
That's it for now. Thank you for coming on. We'll do it again soon, and we'll be let's try to schedule that soon too.
Yeah, we will email.
All right, my friend. You have a good one. Thank you so much for hanging out.
All right. Bye.
All right, peace. Nicolle Leanne, ladies and gentlemen, awesome person, beautiful soul. Everybody in the chat room, Lil T says, I listen here and remember so much. Christy Folks, this person is so blessed. This woman is so blessed. Wow. Awesome. See, and the whole thing, I try to like pick up where like different people come from. And it's like, what I can do, greater things you shall do as well. So it's not like come to me to get this, come to me to get that. Obviously, you're gonna come to that person, you're gonna have interactions, but they're gonna teach you how to maintain on your own. They're gonna teach you how to apply the same principles that we're sharing and that we're talking about to your own life. So you don't have to keep coming to someone looking for answers or keep coming to someone looking for prayer, although it's good and it works, but you won't be reliant upon somebody else's spiritual journey. It's going to be all about your journey and different tools that you can apply to yourself. That's why it's hard for me when I do personal one-on-one sessions with people. It's hard to me to have like repeat clients because I try to like, take care of it all in one session if possible. I've never had like weekly clients or whatever. So it's really cool to hear how you're able to kind of heal the healers, right? Teach people, not just come for like a quick fix, but to show you something that you can apply on your own. Obviously, like a lot of people need help going into those realms, guided meditation, having unclean spirits or entities or like family heritage stuff you need to get off of you. But once that's off of you, like the same experience you went through, you could do it yourself. Man, I can't tell you, like, I know I had other friends who did it more than me, but when we went through these deliverance sessions in the churches and stuff, I say they were in the churches. It wasn't in a church. It was in a home meeting, but it was a Christian thing, right? But some of my friends, they would go through it and they would be confessing, and like they were taught to cough, like when spirits come out. They would cough and it would gag a lot. So I had friends who would be in prayer and they'd just start choking. And it was kind of systematic. It got kind of weird. I can't lie to you. But they would be in prayer and then they'd start gagging and coughing up. They called it hacking up demons. It's pretty weird, I know. But if it worked for them, right? If they got deliverance and it made them feel better, then I'm all for it. Hack it up. Cough it away. You know what I'm saying? It definitely is dealing with breath and with the spirits. And I've had some experiences where the breath is involved, but I mean, it was really weird when they would just be hacking, coughing and choking. I'm like, you all right, bro? Yeah, I'm just hacking up demons. And it was like, oh, okay, that's it. Okay, that's fine. You're cool. You know what to do. And they would do it all the time. Very interesting. I will say that it's awesome that when we're talking, oh yeah, so Lil T talks about the Green Mile. So that's what she's talking about in the chat. Definitely with the Green Mile. That movie is so true as well. It's so weird. Like I've been through those situations where I put my hand on someone and we're sitting in the room and I take the deep breath in and it comes out of them and into me, and then I discharge it or cough it up or breathe it out and release it. I've had those experiences and they've been powerful. The first couple times that's actually happened, and it looks just like the Green Mile, which is funny that you bring that up. It's awesome. Christy says, yep, I've witnessed vomiting during prayer. They were trying to pray her through the Holy Ghost. Yeah, I've seen that too. Can we talk after the show? You can hit me up. Tonight, Thursday night, we're going to be doing the School of the Mystics, and so that's more of a candid one-on-one thing with the people. It's not recorded, it's not filmed. So if you want to catch me tonight, I'll be available for that, and that's for the patrons. Like I said, even for like just sign up for $1 or whatever, you get access to that. So you could join me tonight. It's kind of whenever we do the open sessions tonight. So join me for that. I will say that it's pretty cool as well that when you're going through the spiritual awakening, the synchronicities come and they kind of confirm everything. You start seeing like God, the universe lining everything up for you. The numbers 333, 1111, and then the numbers are cool. Don't get me wrong, but when it moves past the numbers into phrases and it moves into people, and it gets really interesting. It gets really deep to where like you think that you're making it up or something. It's so powerful that you'll say a phrase and then the television's on in the other room and it says the same words with you, or maybe right after you say it, you know, and you look at each other, people like, oh my God, I just said that. And it just, all of these little things adding up. What does it mean? I know, like David Wilcock says, to pay attention to the information that comes through. I've tried to do that, but a lot of times there's no information that comes through. It's not like what you heard was profound. There, but it's something for you, and it's not going to mean nothing to anyone else, because I mean they're not in your mind. They don't know what you're expecting for, what you're believing, or what you're thinking. I remember going to work real early one day, and it was very hot, humid. Everybody was sweating. And I drank all my water, and there was a water fountain at the job. But I knew that when you pushed the button on that water fountain, the water came out with a white, milky color to it. It wasn't clear. It was white. The water was not solid white, but it was foggy water that came out. And I was really thirsty, and I was going up to get some drink. And I was like, man, I know I shouldn't drink that water. And, you know, because I don't know, chemicals or what. But I was going to do it anyway. I was so thirsty. I went down to drink it, and there was the radio was on in the shop that I was working at. And there was a song by Silverchair on, and it talked, and like right when I pushed it and went down, the song was talking about don't drink the water. Whatever you do, don't drink the water is what the song said. And I heard it, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to drink this water, man. It's just like, so it's just little stuff like that. If you explain that to people, they're like, that sounds pretty cool, but it's not going to be like life changing for them. For me, it's like, oh wait, what's going on? And then when you start having this stuff all throughout the day is when it gets very interesting. If you just have it one time, that's cool, but it starts happening all the time. There was a guy who was in the church, and he was into my work. He was into my music. He was checking me out. He was checking Dan Oskopinski out. Even Brandon Barthrop. He was big into that. He found my work. We were going to a spiritual journey at the float tanks in New Orleans. And so while we were headed there, he said, hey, I want to meet you guys because you guys are going to be driving by my house. I said, okay, we're taking a road trip. We'll go meet him. So he invites us into his home, and we have a time of prayer. We filmed it because we were documenting the whole journey. We filmed it. We have a time of prayer and just deep discussion, opening up our hearts to one another. And he was just ecstatic to finally meet us, for us to be in his home and things like that. He was just blown away. I mean, it was a good experience, a good encounter. Well, this guy was very well off. He owned a business, and I think he was had some business partners, and he makes a lot of money. And he ended up telling his wife that we came over, and she flipped out on him. It's like, why did you let them in our house? Blah 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 blah. He writes us and says, please don't release that footage. It could, my business deals, I got investors. Please don't release that footage of me hanging out with you guys. That kind of stuff. And it was like, man, this was a really good brother. Like, he was really connected, man. We shared good space with him. We got the footage. It was part of our documentary. And he asked us not to release it, so it was like, okay, we didn't release it. Well, sometime later, I hadn't heard from him for some time after that, and he was debating whether to call me, because he's like, True Seeker's a mystic, True Seeker is this, people say that True Seeker is that, whatever, everybody's got an opinion, not just of me and just the company I keep. If I was, in the same company with Brandon Barthrop or Dano, people got their own conclusions. But anyway, this synchronicity for him was awesome, because he's driving through a little small town called Mandeville, Louisiana, which is 2.5 hours from me. He's riding in his car and he's thinking about calling me. We say, no, I don't need to call him. I shouldn't. We say, you know what? I want to call. He wants to call me, but he don't know if he should. And then he's on my Facebook page, and he's scrolling at the red light, and he looks up in front of him, and there was a van in front of him with a True Seeker bumper sticker on it in Mandeville, Louisiana, a little small backwoods hole-in-the-wall town that many of you have never heard of. and it said "Seek Truth," and it had my stickers and stuff. And that was synchronicity for him to go ahead and call me up and kind of fix our relationship or whatever, and to apologize and stuff. So he was on my Facebook and looked up, and he seen my bumper sticker. There's not a lot of cars with my bumper stickers on them, right? I used to have a bunch of them. I need some more, but so anyway, he called me, and we patched our relationship up and stuff. And so little things like that to pay attention to. I think God speaks through everything. God speaks through. If he could speak through a donkey in the scriptures, he could speak through us. He could speak through the television. I mean, I just put up a clip where Busy Bone from Bone Thugs and Harmony on the interview I did with him, where he's talking about God speaking to him through the television. Obviously, in that interview, he's all over the place, but there's some other excerpts of him talking about watching the TV and talking to God through the TV. Just some deep, off the wall stuff, man. That's real. Like, God speaks through everything. Our situations, our circumstances, the thoughts in our mind, our fears. If we're listening, he speaks through everything. And that's the beautiful thing, that you can't see God in at all until you can see God in all. And that's literally what it is. So to say that like, God is only using Christians, or God is only using church people, or God is only doing this or whatever, like that's what I used to think. I mean, that's what I was, like she was saying, what I was taught to think by the church and from my own experiences and understand this. But when you see somebody who's saying the same, like that lady was saying the same thing I've been talking about, like her experiences were like right on with mine, and she didn't even come out of the church. I could see if she was in church and she got out of it and then got into spirituality and things. She has never even been into the church realm, and experiences are so similar. That lets you know, man, something's up. Somebody's lying to us, man. And that's part of spirituality and your spiritual awakening, is essentially giving up your right to be right, or feel like you own something, or this is the only way, brother. You've left the path and all that, man. Get out of here with that, man. Got no time for that. But that's part of waking up. You have to go through these experiences to wake up, and you see everybody as an extension of yourself, because they really are. Everyone is an extension of you. And like I said, you got to see God in all, or you can't see God at all. Once you understand the body of Christ, you can understand. I mean, this is what my tattoo means, the flower of life, that we're all connected. Everyone is an extension of you. And it's the truth. So nobody's different. And if we look at when we bring in the Bible into the picture, we go to Acts chapter 10, which I love to talk about. It talks about calling no man unclean. That's that whole thing where Peter seen the sheet come down, which was a talit. If you're watching on video, I have one here. This is the black one, just because I like black. But he's seen it come down, and it was by tradition lowered by the fringes, and it had pigs and all kinds of unclean animals in it that they would never eat. And God says to Peter, in the vision, take it and eat of this. And he's got pigs. Just like, no way, I've never ate a pig. Like I've never ate anything unclean. He's like, no, take it and eat. And so it's funny that a lot of Christians like break that down and say, well, he was just showing us that you can eat whatever you want. But then at the end of that vision, he gets the interpretation, and it says to call no man unclean. Don't think of yourself better than anybody. The whole level, the playing field is even. It's level. And the scripture says that God will deal with anybody as long as they will repent. There's people who, man, I got people who they're scared to talk to me. You know what I'm saying? Like they feel like we're on different levels. It's so funny that even like in the church realm, there were so many people who, like when I left the church, they didn't want to talk to me because they knew that I knew the Bible so well, and they didn't want to debate me because they knew, like, I guess I would handle them with the scriptures, and I would. Let's just be honest, I would. And so, but they wouldn't come to me because of that, right? And it just shows you that people are on these different levels, and people don't want to be uncomfortable. They don't want to be challenged. And so you're different. You're this, you're that. You're a mystic. And I say this, and I know I sound like a broken record, but I'm going to say it because there's always new listeners. There's always new people listening. Do not let anyone label you and generalize. Don't never let these people do that to you, especially because I'm telling you, I have to deal with the Christian stuff. I have to deal with the church stuff because so many people listening to this show are people who are coming out of the church, people who are coming out of religion, and they feel isolated. They feel alone. They don't have nobody to talk to. I've been there. I've stuck my neck out there. This show was doing so well because I've done that. It's 100% because I've been faithful to do that. And I get the messages in my inbox daily, and it's working. What I'm doing is working. And so I'm letting you know, church people coming out of that, don't feel isolated. Don't feel alone. When your friends and your family try to disown you, what did Jesus tell you, though? Didn't he tell you that that's what was going to happen? That your friends and family were going to hate you for my name's sake? They're going to try to tell you that you left the faith or you left Jesus or whatever. No, Christ is love. If you have forsaken love, then yeah, you've forsaken Jesus. But if you're walking in the spirit of love, then don't let these people put any of those type of labels on you or barriers, and don't let them generalize. Don't let them say, a true seeker is a mystic. But, okay, I am a mystic. I like that word. But what do you mean when you say that? They say you're into mysticism. What do you mean? What is mysticism? Like, what are you talking about? Am I into astrology? Am I into that? Okay, well then if we can break it down and be specific about these things, then you can win them over and you can prove what you believe. You can't really prove a generalization. Oh, you're a Gnostic. Hold on. I don't agree. I don't call myself a Gnostic. There's so much of that I don't agree with, and for a good reason, right? And so don't let nobody just throw these names on you. Make them break it down and prove why they are calling you that, whatever they have a contention with. If you call me a mystic because I believe in UFOs, okay, we can go to the scriptures on that. I believe in astrology. We can go to the scriptures on that. You believe in divination. I heard you got tarot cards. We can go to the scriptures on that too. It's all in there. It's all in there. Maybe not by name. Obviously, the Bible doesn't use the word tarot cards. You know what I'm saying? The Bible doesn't use the term psychic abilities. But guess what? They're in there. It's in there. It really is. And it's in there in a good light. In a good light. And I understand. Trust me. I get phone calls from some people who are concerned, some friends who are still concerned. But the scripture says that you'll be judged more harshly, those of you who are teachers. And so I'm on a platform and I'm telling people that it's okay to look into some of these things, right? It's okay to look into divination. It's okay to look into astrology. I say use the Bible as a frame of reference. That's what I do. I can only tell you what I do. Other than that, whatever works for you, that's between you and God. But for me to endorse something, I use the Bible as a frame of reference. And I'm going to tell you what, there's a bunch of stuff in them scriptures that people don't even know exist. There's stuff in there. The Bible is very clear about astrology. The Bible is very clear about divination. And it's not what you've been told. It's not all demonic. It's not all negative. It's not, you won't be possessed. It shares information about these subjects in a good light, 100%. And I will take that up with my Father. And so there's a lot of people who listen to this. They get mad that I now have a growing platform and they don't agree with the stuff I'm sharing. And I will have to take it up with the Father. But trust me, I take it to him in prayer. I submit myself before God, and I trust and believe that what I'm doing is righteous. And you all have to live by that same conviction too. You know what I'm saying? There's people who come and go out of your life all the time, and there's people who can only be there just for certain seasons, man. If it's time to let them go, I'm not saying you have to let them go, but let them walk. Don't kick them out your life, but if they want to walk, let them walk. When the time is right and the season is right, they'll come back if they're meant to come. You got to understand, like, eventually you'll kind of be like me. If you're just getting into this, eventually you'll represent something else. You won't be Chris. You won't be Lil T. You won't be Lane. You won't be Nicolle. You'll represent an idea, right? It's not that they have a contention with you. It's about what you represent. And so they have a problem with that. Don't take it to heart. Don't get offended. Don't walk in offense, but walk in love and truth towards all people, no matter what they call you, no matter what they believe in. All of these things was in the scriptures talking about you're going to be hated for my name's sake, and all who live righteously in Christ Jesus shall suffer persecution. But then you freak out when the persecution happens. We can't be doing that. So understand that you're in a good place. And if you're receiving persecution, if you're receiving judgment, hatred, abandonment, just know you're in good company. You're not alone. You got a big army of people who are here with you. You have a community. You got people who love you. We believe in you. Even if you don't believe everything we're talking about, if some of the things we say you have contention with, the thing is, like, that's what Nicolle was talking about. We're not defined by that. My dogma doesn't define me. Even me, I have to come out of dogma still. Like, this is a daily thing, but when you're able to recognize it, then you're able to move beyond it and kind of transcend it, not to let it harm you. You know what I'm saying? Not to let it hold you back or mess up friendships and things like that. Your dogma, your hang-ups, once you're awakened, man, and once you've done the spiritual work, you're able to see this stuff in your life. Because, I mean, you have to see it in the light first, and then the next time when something like that's coming up or creeping up, or bitterness or resentment, you can feel it and you can deal with it, versus like we were talking about living 10, 20, 30, 40 years with resentment towards the pastor, resentment towards your grandmother or your mom because they look down upon you because you're different, or they disown you. Dude, they're doing it. Like, I have really good friends who are being disowned by their families, like, to the point of tears and the point of heartache. And it's the real deal. This is a spiritual warfare. So I put my neck out there for that. Look, I love each and every one of you guys. Stand strong. If you need somebody to talk to, man, I'm on social media. Hit me up. Look me up. We do the School of the Mystics tonight. We're going to be doing that. So, that's like I said, that's candid conversation. If you guys want to talk about some deep stuff and get into some community discussion and meet other people who are part of the community, make sure you guys take advantage of that. But that's Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Central. We'll be doing that. The new album pre-order is up. You guys can purchase that if you'd like to support my work and do that. All this stuff is at truthseeker.com. There's links to everything there. New album. I just put the pre-order up last night. The album is almost done. It's being mixed and mastered, and I'm waiting on 2 more verses, but essentially the album is what it is. And there's a sampler and all that stuff on the website as well. So check it out and support my work if you find this podcast at all valuable. If you can do it, I mean, there's ways to support. I know everybody, you know what I'm saying, can't support financially. There's other ways of just sharing the work, sharing the music, sharing the information that we're putting out. So everything helps, man. And I appreciate you guys, like, to the point where I'm moved, man. I'm moved that you guys are resonating with the work and you guys believe in me so much that you support me financially on Patreon. I know you get music and all that stuff, but I'm just still blown away that you guys want to see me succeed and really are backing the message, because it's growing. There's a lot of people listening to this show now. I'm blessed. I'm elated. I'm moved that you guys are resonating with it. And it lets me know I'm not alone, right? Because I was in those same shoes, man, thinking that I was alone, that I was the only one. Can you imagine? You know, I'm having all these experiences where I'm seeing UFOs and going out and summoning ETs and stuff, and for hours praying, looking into the sky, right? I didn't have nobody to talk to, man. Like, I had to go online and find podcasts, and there wasn't a lot at the time. And there was people doing it, and you had your big shows, but there was people who played a key role in me not losing my sanity. Like, I try to go to my friends and be like, hey, man, I'm seeing UFO, and they got kids and stuff, and I'm telling them about me, like, come on. This is insane. I know you guys are going through the same thing. I'm reading some of the messages here about going out and seeing the moving lights in the sky, right? You know, so this is what it's about, man. Like I said, I love each and every one of you guys. Thank you for the support, and send me an email. I know a lot of you guys are wanting to get in contact with me. Send me an email, and I'll try to write you back. Peace and blessings to each and every one. God bless.
Your way so much higher than mine, so much higher than mine.
episode, folks. To hear more episodes of the Truth Seeker podcast, head over to truthseeker.com. And if you're wanting to support the show and get rewards, go to our Patreon page at patreon.com/truthseeker.